today is about learning. As we all know, the EV industry today is probably one of the fastest moving, growing spaces in the world today, especially like here in the Philippines right now with the new Evita law, with all these new players coming in. Everybody is competing. It's a race to the top. And that's what we're here today to learn, to put together the greatest minds in the industry and be able to thrash this all out in 1 hour of intense learning. So I hope you're ready. I hope you brought all the goodies with you today to be able to absorb all of this. Think of yourselves as a little power bank and try to get all this power into you, right? And then walk away with something that's going to bring us all a brighter and greener future. Now, given the technological advancements today in EV and the current sustainability initiatives, it's always important that we educate ourselves with all the news surrounding this sector. And this is why we have brought together a wonderful panel for you all to learn. Because just like everything we've done in the past few days here at the 11th Philippine Electric Vehicle Summit, I'm quite sure that you're all just as excited as me to learn. So let's meet our panel, shall we? Because we only have an hour to do this, and I want to get straight to the meat and potatoes, as they always say. So, our first, ladies and gentlemen, panelists today. Before we get into that, I'd like to acknowledge first the presence of the President of Electrical Vehicle Association of the Philippines, Mr. Edmund Araga. And also the President of the Electrical Vehicle Association of Malaysia, Dato Dennis Chua. Welcome. And the President of Phoenix Contact Southeast Asia, Mr. Chair Hong Sit. And the President and CEO of PESIN, Mr. Jojo Conde. Thank you all for joining us today. Now let's meet our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Our first panelist has over 40 years of experience in the financial services industry, and most recently, he was elected to the Federación Internacional de Automobile, the FIA Senate, in 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Automobile Association Philippines AAP President, Mr. Augustus Joe Ferreria. Our next panelist, ladies and gentlemen, has over 35 years of experience in sales, marketing, and business development, and is currently the Business Development Manager for e-mobility of Phoenix Contact Southeast Asia Pte Limited. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Henry Lowe. Welcome, Henry. Our third panelist has recently assumed the position of the Head of Mobility Infrastructure of AC Mobility Holdings Incorporated. Now, prior to her current role, she was the Global Business Development Director, Integrated Microelectronics Incorporated. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome up Ms. Carla Buencamino. Hi, Carla. And ladies and gentlemen, to complete our panelists, we have the President of Nissan Philippines. He joined Nissan in 2017 as Marketing Director for the Latin America region, and where he later took on the role as the General Manager for Global Engagement Brand based in Nissan's global headquarters in Yokohama. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome up Mr. Juan Manuel Hoyos. Okay, now that we're all comfortable in your hot seat, I would call them electric chair, but that's not too. Let's start with a general question for everybody, and maybe you can all give me your take. This is just like a little icebreaker, so to speak. Maybe we can start with Joe. Let's say, how is your respective organizations, this is a question for everybody, contributing to energize the EV ecosystem from the AAP's point of view?
The AAP, or the Automobile Association of the Philippines, is an advocate. It deals with government. It deals with the car manufacturers and stuff like that. So anything that pertains to safe mobility and emerging technology, we're in there, talking to government as well as the private sector. That's what we are in the Automobile Association.
Great. And perhaps the same question?
For us, I am from AC Mobility Holdings, and this is the newly established company within the Ayala Group that basically consolidates all of the efforts of the conglomerate. So if you look at Ayala, we have so much touch points in the ecosystem, starting from renewable energy with ASEN. You have electronics manufacturing with IMI. There is BPI for financing. Then you have logistics. You have mobility with AC Motors, and then finally with Globe, we have connectivity. And as these solutions are connected solutions, you have smart payment as well. And AC Mobility now will be the charge point operator for the Ayala Group, and we will be really mandated to put up the infrastructure for the charging network across the country. So.
Wow, that's quite a lot to energize the system. Henry, can you top that?
Sure. Phoenix Contact, okay, is in the process of supporting and building up an all-electric society. When we do this, we need to improve in terms of the charging infrastructure as well as the grid structure of any country. And we are actually involved in engaging countries to set up this kind of charging infrastructure with the support of Phoenix Contact. We are now actually doing it in Thailand. We are doing it in Indonesia. We have done it in Singapore. We have also moved into Malaysia and into Vietnam. And we are now in Philippines. So the most important thing is we want to bring the technology to local companies that can actually set up this kind of charging infrastructure and create a total integration and ecosystem to support e-mobility.
Great. Now we're getting a clearer picture of all of this. And when I say top, nobody's topping each other because they're all from different sectors of the EV industry and we're all contributing to the same pot or batting on the same side. Juan Manuel, what is your organization contributing to the Energize? I know the answer, but I'll give you the floor.
No, thank you. I think I'm glad to hear how everyone is trying to accelerate this. And I think Nissan is helping that in many ways. One of that is driving the change with the industry. We were the first ones to introduce an EV in the Philippines, which was the Nissan Leaf. Now we are also the first ones to bring also a different technology, which is also an EV, which is the Kixi Power, which is also driving a solution for the driving of the range anxiety. So also we want to do that the transition for all the other EVs. That's one. But also working on the legislation with EVAP, with all the government institutes to try to also change. And that was how also the government came with the EVIDA law. With the help of EVAP, we are also working with all the statements to try to change that. And also on the education. This is one part also that we are working, because everything starts with people knowing the technologies, how they work, how they get used to it, how they test the vehicle, and how then later they will buy an EV. So all of those things are what we are trying to do, build the ecosystem.
Well, I must congratulate you on that because I do know that your communications for the Kicks and for the Leaf, but particularly the Kicks, has been on point. It's really, the message is really getting out there. I drive a Kicks, I have a Kicks myself, and the first question everybody asks me, oh my God, it's true about the coding, it's really sticking. And I think that's the pivotal point that we need to be able to get to the next level. Speaking of the next level, I'll go back to you, Joe. Where do you see the whole EV thing right now in the Philippines? Where are we?
Electrification is a very important thing because we always tell people you have to realize that this is a crossroad in history. It's just like the invention of the light bulb. It changed the world. Electrification of transportation is going to change the world. You need to have a stronger conversation with government. I do believe that we are behind when it comes to government intervention in the development of EV in this country. You've seen countries like Norway that has fully adopted electric vehicle production and usage. So we're still not there, but we need to have a stronger conversation with government to push the envelope further forward.
So we're in the early stages, in other words. I mean, a little bit behind some of our neighbors, but we're getting there. And I think you keep mentioning the key point here is the infrastructure. Obviously, with a new technology like this, by changing it, yes, we're going for a greater good, but we're going to have a new set of problems, right?
Yes.
Where nobody's trying to avoid that. It's a matter of overcoming it for something greater. Now we go back to infrastructure. Carla, this is something that Ayala is very focused on. What is your assessment now on the current state of infrastructure in the Philippines with regard to EV charging stations?
Well, as what you've said, it's really very much in its nascent stages at the moment. But we do believe that majority of charging is going to happen at home. The economics of that is also at home. In the Philippines, we mostly live in individual homes, and it is possible to have a home charger. However, because there are some limitations, and for example, you have vertical living buildings and condominiums. So in order to give the option for people to charge outside of their homes, is we're looking to provide infrastructure in commercial centers. And basically, you're looking at malls, offices, buildings, and estates. And hopefully, this will alleviate the concern over range anxiety, as they do have an option to charge at their destinations. But that would be the start, really, is to really start putting the network out there. It's really an investment.
So this is Ayala's commitment towards it, to the greener future.
Yes,
It's like saying,
very
okay,
much.
while even it's not, I'm sure the business model is not really there yet,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
That was a polite way of saying.
Well, for now, no, for all those EV owners there, you do know that your charging is still free until the end of the year. But hopefully, we will be able to, start charging for the use of these infrastructure next year. But we have 20 stations that's already set up now, and we're very much committed to set up at least 100 more by next year. So we're very excited about this.
It's kind of like the chicken and the egg thing, right? I mean, it's like who moves first here? It's like, well, as an EV owner, I want to get an EV, but there's not enough infrastructure. The infrastructure guys are like, well, there's not enough EVs. Why am I going to create more infrastructure? So we're at this delicate point right now where it's like Ayala is saying, you're subsidizing this because you believe in a greener future.
Correct.
Government plays a big role. I'll ask Henry, keeping with this question, can you share with us more perspective in the ASEAN region with regarding the necessary infrastructure for EV?
Yes, there is. There are actually 3 points, and the chicken and egg, analogy is actually quite interesting. It's not the chicken, it's not the egg. It's actually procreation. Yeah, and that is, to me, is development of the infrastructure. Okay, and the 3 points here you must consider is, first, you need to have a very stable grid system to support e-mobility. You need to have renewable energy sources. And the most important for all the EV cars is to have standardization in terms of the charging inlet or the EV plug to charge energy into the car. When you don't have that, you have a mass of confusion because everybody was thinking of different kind of charging standard, different kind of charging points to charge different kind of vehicles. And that's going to cause a lot of confusion and a lot of problems to the public. Okay, that's my take.
Are we streamlining that now? Are we getting down to one standardized charging port?
I'm surprised because when I look around, there were some users of EV who approached me and said that, hey, we bought a car from China and it's using a GBT plug. But I'm having charging problem now because it's all CCS2 charger, see? And you have to standardize that. And the main stakeholder to do this is the government. If the government gives us a law, every EV car that comes in will have a standard plug for the charging infrastructure.
Look, if Apple could go with a Type-C, there's hope, right? That means anyone can finally adopt, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
speaking of adopting, this is one of the reasons that I think the Kicks is so groundbreaking is because Nissan was able to sort of navigate their way around this problem in the beginning, because this is the initial stages of EV adoption, is range anxiety, infrastructure, and you've got your own infrastructure built into the Kicks, right? It's got that little gasoline charger for now that solves this problem. But I want to know in the future, Juan, when you bring in more EVs, because Nissan does have plans, you've got the Leaf, how are the different automotive manufacturing companies navigating the current state of the EV sector?
I think there is many ways. One is, for instance, Nissan is a 90-year company. We are actually celebrating 90 years. And our first EV has more than 70 years. Okay. The first mass EV produced, which was the Leaf, has going to be around more than 10 years. We have more than millions cars. We have knowledge. So EVs is not new to us, okay? It's new maybe in the Philippines. We only launched it like 2 years ago, but we keep building that knowledge, and that's what we try to do, as I mentioned before. We try to educate. But the most important portion is that the more entering the EV, more other automakers that say, oh, I have an EV now, we are glad, because that will bring knowledge to the market. And that knowledge will make the transformation, because it's not just the demand will come, but the offer also will help us, that people will understand the difference between the technologies, and then the people can choose. Like for instance, we know that people that test the vehicle, they are convinced, because it's very difficult sometimes to explain the technology. People need to feel it. And more people driving EVs, they will look for more EVs. And that's when, if the industry start bringing EVs, or like this, that we see more automakers arriving, we are welcoming the industry, because that's the way to change.
It's not so different to how we all adopted to the internet. In the beginning, the internet was a place for either nerds or it took a while before businesses, especially industries, started to double down and invest in digitizing their companies. And I think we're kind of similar in the same type of problem now. So I'll go back to you, Carla. Perhaps you can share with us what other investments and innovations are needed. I know you're doing a lot. I'm not pressuring you, not saying you're not doing enough, but what other investments and innovations are needed to be realized to accelerate the adoption of EV here?
If you look at it from the infrastructure side, no, that technology is very mature. There's so much technology out there in Europe, in the US, and in China that we really don't have to start from scratch. We can look to these solutions to apply to the Philippines. But I think the challenge really is in understanding or creating the best customer experience for the people to want to transition to that. And part of that is being able to find the right kind of infrastructure to start with in the beginning to make that transition easy for them. We've looked already into, it's not just about the charging, we're also looking at that from the digital perspective, where, you know, hopefully we can centralize the forward-facing application to the consumers so that when they look for their charging stations, they're not having to find 5 separate apps, right? But have a central app, and then that application is able to see all chargers. So discovery of the chargers will be easy, reservations will be easy, charging, and then eventually payment. So a lot of that is happening. There's a lot of innovation going on, both for infrastructure side and of course on the customer engagement, right?
So great. So it's now, I guess it's a connectivity in a way. It's yes.
Yes.
It's, for lack of a better term, like a Tinder, but for charging stations. Just swipe, match. Joe, I'll go back to you.
Yes.
What do you think, what other opportunities exist for partnerships among stakeholders to advance the EV sector?
I like focusing on this thing. You need to collaborate among the stakeholders in order to improve adoption, the usage. Because unless the people start using, there's interest in using EV, nothing happens. So when you say collaboration among the stakeholders, government, for example, I'll use an example. If government says hypothetically, says in Metro Manila, no taxi cabs will run on fossil fuel after 5 years, okay? And then the other stakeholder would be the car companies. I will give you an incentive, a tax holiday for the next 15 years for you to build that taxi cab that is electric. And then there's that political side, which is people. Now, people will now start to experience what it is to ride an electric vehicle. Because after a while, you cannot find an ICE taxi, but all of them are electric. So therefore, that contributes, that collaboration between government, the private sector, and the public leads to usage, which moves the conversation forward on the development of EV. We have to begin in a small area. We cannot look at the national policy, but rather Metro Manila can be, working with the national as well as the local government, will push this envelope forward as far as EV usage is concerned.
So there are plenty of opportunities, as you can see, within the space for partnerships. It's quite dynamic. You know, we look at infrastructure as just hardware, but no, it's also in partnerships that could be considered part of the infrastructure. Those countries that are far more advanced than us, for example, Singapore, Henry, that's a place where it's pretty much the Norway of the East, I guess. What are some of the things that we can learn from the experiences of other countries, like perhaps Singapore, that have successfully advanced their EV sectors? And don't say the COE, please.
I would love to compare Singapore to Norway, but it's a very, very vastly different kind of system, you know, right? Because Norway has a lot of natural resources, unfortunately, we do not have. In terms of comparison, for very dedicated and very advanced and also growing charging infrastructure, I would compare Thailand. Now, Thailand, as you know, in the past few decades, they have been an automotive hub, and they built ICE at that point in time. But the government see the need to move into renewable energy, moving away from fossil fuel, and they supported that initiative to convert, whatever they have in terms of the mobility that they are currently running now to e-mobility. And the first thing is investment into charging infrastructure. And they did not own in terms of most of the charging infrastructure because they allow the private sector companies to come in to work with the stakeholder to grow the charging infrastructure. And they have 3 authorities down there. I think if you look at it, they have EGAT, which is the main energy generator, EGAT, which is the main generation authority of Thailand. And then you have the Provincial Energy Authority, as well as the Metropolitan Energy Authority. They are all in sync to increase the charging infrastructure under their domain. So they have the provincial control, the metropolitan control, and the total control, especially from EGAT, in terms of the energy distribution. And then they work together with private sector companies and also people like Phoenix Contact to bring this kind of technology to their country. And I can safely say that today there are more DC chargers in Thailand than in any other country in Southeast Asia. You can actually drive an EV car from Singapore all the way to Thailand and all the way from Thailand back to Singapore, all based on the single standard, CCS2.
That's impressive, and that's
Yeah.
something we can definitely learn. Thank you for that, Henry. Now, with Nissan, we know what Nissan has been doing to educate customers and stakeholders regarding the advantages of EV. Your campaign on the coding alone, like I keep going back to, is such a huge thing for people because they really do see that as a true incentive to be able to make the switch. And then, of course, you've got the e-power technology that has basically made it through that hurdle of range anxiety that a lot of people are worried about. But my question for you, Juan, is what is your wish list or in your wish list for the other sectors to do to help in energizing the EV ecosystem?
In my wish list of the sectors will be that continue actually what we are discussing here, putting more infrastructure on the homes. That could be one thing. Also, maybe even we talk about training more electrician or people on the field that can help us to drive knowledge of how to service the cars later that we will need for our dealerships. We are doing that also on our own. But also on the wish list will be the extension for the long run of some of the benefits that we have, because maybe in the time of 5 years will not be enough to ramp up as fast as we want the introduction of all the EVs. And if we keep bringing EVs, if we keep putting people inside the cars driving EVs, people will not go back. But we need also all the things around. So that's why we created what we call Blue Switch program. In the Blue Switch programs, we are also partnering with associations like EVAP, with government officials, with NGOs to educate, continue to bring the experience of EV to many sectors so we can continue to grow the ecosystem.
So it's just about bringing more and more people in contact with the experience of EVs because, like you said, once they try it, just like the internet, just like digital photography, just like digital music, they cannot go back. There's some hesitance in the beginning. We're used to playing our records. Well, not me. That's a little too young for that, no. But we're used to playing physical CDs before, physical records. But then the whole transition. But then once you try it, you go, I can't imagine a world without it. Okay, we're going to end with this question. I just want to check if we have time for questions from the floor after this. We do? Okay, so I'll get you to react to the same question, and then we'll open the floor for questions. Anyone who wants to react to the same question about what is in your wish list for other sectors to do to help in energizing the EV ecosystem, Joe?
Collaboration is very important. However, if you do collaborate, you need to understand the vision by which you're trying to collaborate for. Okay? And that vision should put the user primary. Yes to EV, yes to the infrastructure, but EV should translate into cheaper mobility. If I'm using a taxi cab before, I used to pay $500 to go from point A to point B. Using EV, I now pay 200 because the fuel should be cheaper, right? So that should be the foremost vision of the collaboration, to make it cheaper and more environmental friendly for the consumer, which is the riding public.
Okay, before we get Carla to react, I'd like to invite anyone to ask a question. We will be opening the floor after Henry reacts to the same question. We'll start with Carla first.
Well, for us, we're very much big on the synergy part, no? But I think right now, we do it's the recognition that the cooperation needs to be done. There is no one single company that can do this. I think it's very unique for the EVs in that while the car is important, there are a lot of elements of the rest of the ecosystem which is needed to make it successful. And so, we're hoping to be able to find greater collaboration, especially with the government, no, in trying to bring the right infrastructure to certain key locations where this thing is needed. And it's all about an ecosystem play for us. Yeah.
Thank you, Carla. Henry, would you like to react to this?
Yes, the collaboration between stakeholder being the government, right, would be my wish list is to work on more renewable energy resources with the government and of course the private sector in the Philippines to create more renewable energy such as solar, wind, hydrogen, or even in terms of hydroelectric. Because if you look at Philippines itself, right, it's many, many islands. And if you can have like off-grid, very stable off-grid energy supply source from renewable sources, it will place less strain on the power grid, okay, from the main power generator. So that's my wish list, renewable energy sources.
Renewable energy sources, because yes, there is a concern about the load on the grid. So we want to address that. We want to make sure at some point that we can, yes, not put too much load on it. All right, so those are my questions. I'd like to open up the floor right now to anyone else out there that has their questions. We have 2 microphones set up over there. Please just make your way up to the microphone and direct your question to whoever you'd like to address it to.
Hi, I'm Dennis from Malaysia. I see that I've been attending this event organized by EVAP for several years. I think I've came here for almost like 8 to 9 years, 8 to 9 times. I see that this year have been a very good growth on the EV sector. But I see that the registrations of the EV is still at a very low numbers. For instance, if just EVAP alone to bring this and also together with the private sector to engage with the government, I think it's still at a slow pace. But we didn't see that whether we able to get the big automotive companies like Nissan or even the automotive where can we able to get the governments to actually able to plan out the policy where by when, of course we hope that not the next decade, but within the 1 or 2 years, governments to really put a mandate that all the government's sectors vehicle must be how many percent EV. If we can able to get more automotive makers to actually carry on this to engage with the governments. So if we see that mandates, because even until today when we ask around whether there are people who interested to convert their ICE cars to EV, the question is still the infrastructure. So as also chicken and egg, but if we can able to get the biggest automotive makers to engage together with the government to put a policy or mandate where it must be how many percent or even 50% to be converted to EV, that will actually able to bring the industry faster and also to build a local manufacturers or the supply chain to support the EV sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else with a question for our panel? Please feel free. I have one or two here from some shy people.
Maybe I want to comment on
Sure.
that one. I agree with you, and I think one of the things that we are doing is trying to accelerate everything. Because I think that the government actually is committed. They released last year the VIDA law. They have some things that maybe they don't have clear percentage, but they have kind of a roadmap. Just to be fair also with the government. It's up to us, yes, the private sector, that we need to bring the products and we need to help accelerate. Put the foot on the accelerator on the electrification. To do that, we do with different ways. One, with EVs, full EVs, and with EVs supported by a gasoline engine who charge the battery. That could be a quick transition because with that, we will have more people trying the EVs. Mm-hmm. It's not just because if we mandate the people, we kind of force.
Yeah.
But what we have is to help them to understand the benefits of the technologies. And that's why all the sectors are working on.
So attract, don't demand.
Correct.
And regarding the mandates, maybe, Henry, you could share maybe if there's a successful model of countries that, what's the percentage first to start with mandating, let's say, fleets? Is there a starting point, 5%, governments?
Yes, once a country hits about 30% in terms of EV, right, the mandate will become stronger and stronger because the government can see in terms of the potential of the adoption of EV and in terms of the business that can be attracted to the private sector or can be created by the private sector. So the question is 30% in terms of EV will start to move things, get things to move. And today, if you really look at that, that's happening already in Thailand.
30%?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, any more questions from the floor? Yes, please, just grab the mic. Please introduce yourself and address who you'd like your question to be for.
Hi, good morning. I'm Jel Angeles. I'm a member of the Nissan Kicks e-Power Club of the Philippines. First of all, I'd just like to say that as a car enthusiast, I've had a lot of vehicles, in petrol vehicles, diesel vehicles. And it took me some time to actually think to transition to hybrid because I didn't want to make the jump to EV yet because, again, because of the infrastructure concerns, the government regulations. So I really I gave it a lot of thought, and I said that my first car will be a hybrid. I mean, my intro into the EV segment will be through a hybrid. So I'm very happy with the Nissan Kicks, Mr. Hoyos. And we're very excited as well to help spread the awareness to our petrol heads to help them make the transition. We noticed that in other countries like Japan, there are so many other e-power models. We're just wondering, when will you introduce other e-power models here in the Philippines? So that's it. Sorry, thank you.
Before you react to that, I just have to commend you that that's probably the greatest piece of marketing in action. No, because what he said is so true. He said, I didn't want to make the jump straight to an EV. I wanted to go to a hybrid first, but because the Nissan Kicks is actually an EV, you didn't even feel it.
Yes.
So he made the transition without feeling it. I think that you've done a great job there, Nissan.
Thank you.
So thank you for the question. I think we receive a lot of that question, which is very flattering because that means the technology is getting there. We just have an announcement yesterday from the Department of Energy. Kicks now is officially an EV, okay? So that's part of what we are going to do. With that, that's great news because that set the precedent that we can think about futures of e-power, other models. At this point in time, we cannot announce, but those kinds of news encourage the effort that we are bringing for the market. So you can feel proud that you are driving already an EV, okay? Because it's an electric motor driven. So the propulsion is electric motor driven, and that's why it's considered an EV. So this also you will hear from us in the future because you can see that they maybe will be sometimes on the pipeline.
Wow. Thank you for your question. The transition was so smooth, he didn't realize he had transitioned. Some people think that the Kicks only identifies as an EV. We heard it here from Juan. It's officially an EV. Mike, is that you? Hi, Mike. Go ahead.
I'm Mike Potenciano, mpiturbo.com. Congratulations first for this EV Summit and this Nissan seminar. So anyway, my thoughts, my insight, no? First for Mr. Joe of AAP. Since we have been doing AAP eco runs, fuel mileage for regular ICE cars, do you think that we can do something with the EV also?
Great question.
Yeah, we can really standardize their
Can I make
ranges?
a confession to you, Mike?
Yes, please.
I feel that the Automobile Association needs to put more energy into its advocacy towards EV. We have been having a conversation with government on road safety, targeting the schools and driver education. But I think I will agree with you. We'll push for more projects that are more focused on EV adoption. We'll talk to more legislators about coming up with better laws in order to support the industry and the consumer as well. Thank you. Mike, you should really work with us on this project, okay?
Yes, Joe.
Okay.
And also that EV range, no, let's
Yeah.
standardize it.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
everyone will be on the same page,
Yeah.
will be on the same
Right,
standard
right.
being done by AAP, monitored by
Yeah,
AAP.
I think the government likes to listen to us because we're a disinterested party.
Yes.
We're a non-profit. And when we speak in behalf of the consumer or the riding public. So they know that there's no agenda behind it. But what we push is really for the general good, which is why if we collaborate more with you, your associations, we can make the voice stronger towards a better regulation on EV.
Okay.
I think what Mike's question is a great question, by the way, Mike, about standardizing. We already relate to the 10 kilometers per liter, 15, whatever it is, that's in our brain, but you're hoping for something in an EV standard.
Yes,
So this is 2 kilowatts per kilometer or whatever.
Or
That's why I
maybe
want to
the
pick-
What's the
range,
term?
Yeah, the range.
The range.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
range of,
I want to pick your
before.
brain on that one, Mike. So
Okay.
let's sit down and let's see what we can do about it.
Sige.
Okay, we'll look at the range of the vehicles, whether we can do an eco run as well for electric vehicles. How far can this thing? Because when you promote that, you can actually demonstrate to people that traveling with an EV vehicle to Baguio and back is possible without any problems, especially on charging. So I get where you are, but I think I need to pick your brain some more on how we can run something like that. Okay,
Okay, Joe. Thank
Please
you.
work with us. Thank you.
Yes.
But maybe I can push the envelope
Yes.
a little bit more, because also I think part of the FAA is part of the Formula E, and Formula E is a race on street. So we have already some races in Asia, but why not thinking about maybe Manila, Asiana, BGC, maybe one of the cities can host one of the events.
That's a great idea. That would
Formula
really...
E? Yeah, but that's a very expensive proposition.
I say I'm pushing the envelope. So.
Okay. I agree with you, but doing a Formula One race in one country is a very expensive proposition because there are a lot of demands on the level of safety of the streets and the engagement of government when it comes to supporting the event. It's not easy to do. Okay, it's not easy to do. So, but sure,
But
with
a great
Nissan
idea.
helping us, advocating for e-races here,
Yeah.
why not? Why not?
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you.
certainly a great way to get in. Thank you, Mike, for the question. And we'll go over to Carla now. When are you planning to put up charging stations across all Ayala properties?
We're already starting to do this. As I've mentioned, we are already poised to put in at least 100 more in the next coming months. And most of these, of course, will be in Metro Manila and, of course, across Luzon. But as the dealerships start moving to other cities, like Cebu and Davao, we will be putting in those locations as well, starting with our properties. But I'd just like to say that the solutions that we're promoting are first enabling the Ayala properties, but we're also looking to partner with individuals and companies beyond our network, right? Because at the end of the day, the goal is to have the network, the charging infrastructure um, proliferated. So we hope to see not just Ayala charging stations, but Ayala partnerships with other companies as well. So we're looking forward to interested parties to collaborate.
Just remind us again the amount. I think you said earlier there's 20 so far with
There's
another.
20 so far, and at least 100. I say at least 100 because we will really try to go for more if we can. But there is already a committed that we should have at least 100 more
Okay.
by mid of next year, actually.
By this time next year. So 120. We have a question from the floor. Please introduce yourself and if you
Hi,
want
good
to
morning.
direct
My
it.
name's Ian Magbanwa from the Daily Tribune. Actually, this is for Carla. You kind of answered it already, but just to get into a little more detail, what I wanted to ask was where you are at regarding that effort to cooperate with other brands and manufacturers. Because you were talking about a digital ecosystem where EV owners could check out where they could charge, right? So if you are right now, that could look like a closed system with Ayala First, but you are open to cooperating with other brands and manufacturers regarding this. But where is that effort at this moment?
Thank you very much. That's a good point that you've raised now. What I'd like to say is the ecosystem for Ayala is intended to be agnostic. That's the reason why we're separating this from the car companies because it's not meant to push one particular vehicle OEM, but it's really meant to represent all, right? So we're looking both for the infrastructure to be agnostic, but even on the software development side, the platform that we are putting together is meant to also connect other CPOs just like the Ayala Group's charging network. And with the same token that we want that to be agnostic because the intent is really for the customer, right? For them to have the greatest or the best experience as far as having access to all of these charging stations. We look to be able to launch this. The target is the end of this year. And so I don't have a date that I'd like to put out there at the moment, but you'll hear from us towards the end of the year. So we're very much excited for this. So it's not just the equipment or the charging infra, but including the software and the digital solution that comes together with it.
Okay, just to follow up, would you say that you are at the forefront of this development? Because I was talking to one of the charger manufacturers on the floor, and they were talking about their own app, a certain connectivity standard that the chargers have. Are you guys in talks with other parties regarding this
Yes.
standardization?
Yes, we're doing that, and we're also an active member of the EVAP. There is an international standard by which these equipment connect to. The OCPP is an international standard, so all of these equipment are compliant to that. But again, on the connectivity and also on the user experience, we are trying to work with these individual parties because at the end of the day, we hope to be able to bridge them all together, right? Because it's one experience for the customer. So we're trying to see this from the perspective of the user. So we are in talks with them. Globe's 917 team has been in discussion with a lot of players in the industry, both the car OEMs and also the software providers and the charging station providers themselves.
Okay, thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Okay, more questions from the floor?
Good morning. Sorry for my voice. as an association, what can we do more from you as a member of the association, from Nissan and from AC Motors perspective? We want to hear from the members outright right now, because right now we've already organized this for 11 years, and what can we do more from you? So, can we hear from you right now?
What you can do more as members.
Yes, I think, as I mentioned, there is the will on the government, but the acceleration in some of the small details. Like, for instance, the plates with the LTO for the EVs, those kind of things, the government wants to do it, but the speed has sometimes to accelerate. I think that's mostly what we are asking on the things that we're working, collaborations, to get to the right people, to make those things, the small details, happen really fast.
In answer to Edmund's question, right? Funny, because in EVAT, if there are members of EVAT here, they can confirm this. There's an academic group in EVAT Thailand, and this academic group is involved in engaging the private sector to bring technologies to the educational levels in university. I personally have actually spoken in one of the university in Thailand, and it was at the invitation of EVAT Thailand academic group. And these are academic lecturers who are lecturing in 400 universities in Thailand, and they are educating the next generation of engineers, adopters of EV in terms of the EV technology. And I think this can be done by EVAP. Well, if you want to conduct a lecture at La Salle University, I'm more than willing to volunteer my services for you. Yeah?
Maybe while we still have you on the mic, Henry, what is a reasonable cost for charging? Somebody's asking from a phone-in question.
We did this comparison actually in Singapore, and also we did this comparison in Thailand. I'm talking in terms of fossil fuel car, ICE, versus an EV car. You have a savings of 30%. Same comparable power, same in terms of engine capacity and all that. 30% in terms of the total operational cost as you use a petrol. Now, as the petrol prices goes higher, your saving will tend to be more if the energy cost can also go down. So just imagine, today, baseline average, 30%. So how much do you pay in terms of petrol in a month? You can say that when you change to EV, right, and use energy, right, you have a savings in terms of 30% in the cost. And also it's cheaper to run an EV car because there are less parts to maintain and service and all that.
Yes,
compared
less
to the
moving
ICE,
parts,
right?
less for service. Would you say the 30%, is that fair to apply even here to the Philippines? I know we
Yes.
pay more for our electricity than most places
Yes.
in Asia.
Yes, we actually compared with in Malaysia, in Thailand, and in Singapore.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's a good rule of thumb. We can quote you on that 30%. That's nice because a lot of people ask me that same question. I could never quite answer it. So thank you for that, Henry. I believe we have some guests here from the academe. Perhaps some of you will have questions for our panelists. We only have not much longer to go. So if you'd like to take the opportunity now, please feel free to ask while they're all here. We got some great sound bites so far. So we'll all open the floor one more time. Any shy people out there? Because we got a few. Okay, we'll ask one from the.
I'm sorry, we don't have a panelist from the banks here, but banks plays a vital role in terms of energizing mobility. What do you think would be the bank should be? Well, what do you think would be the bank's role, no, or can do to accelerate mobility? Probably could be a special add-on rate for EVs, a longer term. Let's say maybe Miss Carla can say something about that because they're from AC.
How can the banks help? Well, you're already charging my credit card, so you know how to charge. Just kidding.
No, I can't provide the details for that, but definitely BPI is looking into it. We're very much in collaboration together with them because one of it is like the financing, right? And then you're looking at leasing opportunities, which not just BPI, but in general, I think especially for fleet owners, they're looking for assistance in, how to purchase their electric vehicles for public use, and these are the areas where the banks could really make their own contribution, because apart from that, you have issues on insurances, right, and on the cost of these. I guess there is still a struggle, and the banks are trying to understand really like maybe resale values of the vehicles. But for sure, this is definitely within the radar already, and BPI, at least from the Ayala Group, is very much looking into this and is already offering some solutions for EV potential owners.
Lower interest rates would be nice. I don't know how they could do that, but yes, that would be one way if we could sort of incentivize with some lower interest rates. But as you can see, basically, it takes a village to do this. This is not something that falls right on Nissan's shoulders or the AAP or Ayala or any of our stakeholders here. It's a collaboration between everybody that's going to make this work. But first, we must decide that this is the correct way forward. And I think all of us here in this room do understand that this is the way of the future. And in some way, shape, or form, electricity or the electrification of vehicles will always play a role. Because even if we move into hydrogen and other technologies, there's still some kind of hybrid solution, and electricity will always play a decent role in this. So I've learned so much from this panel so far about what's needed. You have one final question before we go? We'll have to make it quick, though.
Okay, this is a final question. Question or sharing. While we are talking about the adoptions of the EV, not to forget the two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Maybe from the company, the stakeholder here, where go into using electric two-wheelers or three-wheelers, and this is to share that, not to forget the two wheels and three wheels. Thank you.
That's a good point, especially in a country like ours, where we have over 20 million vehicles here, two-wheeled vehicles on the road, as compared to what, 2 million for cars, for four wheels, and the 20 million, you can see the numbers are certainly going to make a big impact if we can penetrate that market there. So there's a lot to be done, as we can all see, but pulling together, we know we can do this, because there is a brighter future at the end of all of this effort. And these congresses and summits are a very good stepping stone towards those solutions that we're all looking for. So on behalf of all of us here, I'd like to thank our panel. Could we give them a big round of applause, please? We've had a great discussion here. Thank you very much. And we'll just ask you for a photo opportunity before we go, if we could just stand up.